What's up, guys? Today we are going to do a Star Wars Squadrons Q&A because I'm just not tired of talking about this game yet. I'm still really excited about it, so I wanted to take some of your questions and just get a discussion going.
I'm not excited at all. Ben, Alden Diaz, Yunners, and Matt Crater all asked what characters we think could appear in the single-player story of the game.
They all asked about different people. I'll try to remember everyone. And starting with Iden, Versio, and Shriv, Inferno Squad. And honestly, I want to start with them because I do think that's very likely.
Yeah, I mean, Mitch Dyer is a friend of ours. He wrote the Battlefront 2 campaign.
And so did Walt Williams.
Yeah.
They're both working on this.
Yeah. So
and I know they love Shriv, as does everybody.
I mean, he's a beloved character, so I would not be surprised at all if they found a way to get them into this game.
It also kind of makes sense story-wise. They would have probably recently joined the Rebellion, and there's like this time jump. There's a couple time jumps in Battlefront 2 where, like, I honestly think it would be good to flesh their story out a little bit more and see what they got up to in between those jumps, because like the Battlefront 2 story moves so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
It would be nice to see Iden a little bit more and get into her head how she's feeling about defecting and all that.
Yeah. And so, I mean, just from the trailer, other recognizable characters that we know will be in it will be Hera,
Ray Sloan,
Wedge.
Yeah. So I imagine that that's just like the tip of the iceberg, so to speak. I think somebody asked, like, will we see Han, Luke, or Leia? Those feel less likely to me, only because, like, this seems like it's a very contained little mission that they're on. It's a secret mission. We kind of know what all three of those characters were up to at this point in time. So I think they're all going to be doing their own thing. Not saying it's impossible, but someone asked about Alphabet Squadron. I think I don't know if they're going to show up, because it sounds like Squadrons takes place alongside Shadowfall. And so we know exactly what Alphabet Squadron was doing that whole time. If you've read Shadowfall, no spoilers, don't worry. But there are references to Vanguard Squadron, so I kind of expect a little bit of fun there. Like, let's also reference Alphabet Squadron in the game.
Oh, could Lando be in it?
He was in the Battlefront 2 campaign. I could see that.
That would be cool.
That makes sense to me. I'm expecting this to mostly be pretty self-contained. And if they're bringing in familiar characters, I hope it's kind of along the lines of Ray Sloan and Hera and, like, non-movie characters. I like being able to pull in stuff from the books and the shows and the comics a little bit more.
Yeah, because, I mean, either way, it's exciting to see new characters, and if people recognize some of these people from the books and comics, they're going to be really excited, and then the people who don't recognize them might see that, oh, these characters are in other things, and they might get into the books and comics.
Right.
Jeremy and Pablo Alvarez and lots of other people want to know, where are the B-Wings?
Yeah, that's interesting. Especially given, like, it's a 5-person squadron on each team. You'd think that 5 ships would be cool. I think that it's probably a balance issue, and they probably knew what kinds of ships they wanted to fill which roles, and that at least early on there wasn't a spot for the B-Wing. I am hopeful that there is room down the line for extra content, extra support like they did for Battlefront 2. I would love to see the B-Wing and the TIE Defender join the squadron.
Yeah. So it's a 5-player team.
Mm-hmm.
There's only 4 ships?
Yes. You got your fighters, your interceptors, your bombers, and your support ships. So I think that...
Is there more than one person in one of the ships?
No, it's just that one person is going to have to double up. Like,
Oh.
There's going to be at least one ship in each team that is repeated. And I think that's probably what they want. I mean, that kind of, I don't know, throws a little wrench in the gameplay and the balance instead of like, well, let's just go with the most balanced thing, which would be one of each ship. And now it's like, okay, we have to strategize and see like, okay, what did they have two ships of and how do we counter that? I think that's probably what they were going for.
I get it now.
Yeah.
I don't know why that didn't click for me at first. I was like, wait, 4 and 5?
Well, like, I don't think that's a dumb question because the U-Wing could have, like, someone in the gunner position and there could be, like, a mag field and you could shoot out the side. I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah. Like the space monkey.
Yeah, you'd be Bastan. So, yeah, I think that's probably the issue is that they were designing a game first and foremost, and it has to be balanced. And I'm sure they know that people want the B-Wing, and they are probably thinking about it. I wouldn't say that it's impossible for it to ever come in. And who knows, maybe they'll surprise us closer to launch. I don't know.
That would be cool.
But it sounds like they have the team comps that they want that they feel will work the best. Because, I mean, if you have to choose between getting the B-Wing in or having the best game you can make, you have to go with the best game you can make.
Yeah. Alexander Kine asks if we have to play through the single-player campaign before playing the multiplayer. So this was actually a question I had watching the gameplay trailer because it was a little confusing.
As I've had people ask me online, I've had friends text me, and it's not something that it's just something that people interpret differently because I didn't get that at all. Luckily, Ian Fraser, the game's director, did an interview on Polygon and talked about this and clarified it. It sounds like there is like a little tutorial the first time you boot the game up, and it's like the intro to the story mode, but it's basically like, here are the basics to flying. And if I'm reading it right, once you finish that and you know what you're doing for the most part, then it'll say, okay, do you want to keep doing the story, or do you want to hop online and play multiplayer? I think that's it. And maybe the prologue gives you a little bit of time in every ship just so you get to see everything and understand.
I have to imagine that you'd want to get the feel for each ship and how they fly, and maybe they'll introduce, like you said, introduce the main characters in that little intro period. So kind of piques your interest if you want to keep going with the story mode, or if you just want to shoot ships and fly around, you can.
Well, yeah, Vanguard Squadron's commander is listed as he was a flight instructor at one point, so I think it's going to be, all right, here we go. He's teaching you how to fly, and then you get to go on your way. But no, it does not sound like you have to complete the single-player story before playing multiplayer, because I'm sure there are plenty of people who just want to go and shoot ships and do dogfights, and they might not care about the story. I'll be doing the story first regardless, so I'm going to probably finish the single player before multiplayer.
Is that going to affect the customization aspect of things? Is it something where you do have to finish the single player campaign in order to start customizing stuff?
I doubt you have to finish it before you can customize things, but I'm sure finishing the campaign will unlock some fun stuff. They're going to encourage you to play the single player campaign, but they're not going to require it. So like maybe the Ewok bobblehead that we all already treasure, maybe you have to beat the campaign to unlock that or something.
Bakey and Cameron French both want to know what we think the challenges of flying in first person will be, and if the lack of third person will hurt the game. So I know a lot of people have their preferences as far as if they want to play games in first or third person. I don't know, like, I don't really play enough flying games to have a preference.
Well, so I mean, when you played Battlefront 2, you played in third person mostly.
Yeah.
And I was honestly surprised that it was a fully first-person game. I was expecting it to be like, yeah, you can play it in VR and you can play it in first person, but I kind of expected I would mostly be playing in third person. That's just how I tend to play games, period. I do think there will be some challenges. I think the TIE fighter especially, like, I'm worried about flying a TIE fighter because it's like, well, here's your little circle.
Yeah.
And that's it. Good luck. Like, flying an A-wing, I feel, will be very different because it's like you can look everywhere and it just has an almost fully clear cockpit. So
yeah,
it's definitely going to be interesting when you're in an Imperial ship. But they built this to be a single-player game, or a first-person game. So it's not like they did that on a whim. They know what they're doing. They designed the UI for it. I have to imagine that it's going to address any challenges or fears that we have.
Yeah, and like I said, if you're just dead set on playing flying games specifically in third person, you may just have to put those feelings behind and just see if you can enjoy playing in first person.
I mean, I'm looking forward to it. Like, I usually play third person, even in FPS games when it gives me that option. I prefer third person. So the idea that it's kind of going to force me into this, but like, I'm all about them going for the immersion and the realism, especially like I talked about in VR. I was hoping that if you want to lock in your S-foils, like, you reach up and you hit that switch, and I don't know if they're going to go that far, but the idea of feeling like you are in the cockpit is exciting to me. And I think that is what they're going for, that kind of experience.
Yeah, that's like kind of the point of the game. The point of the gameplay is to feel like you're flying these ships.
Yeah, so I do think that there will be challenges, but I also think that they will be taken into consideration when it comes to balance. Like, yeah, TIE Fighter doesn't have as much visibility, but they're going to make up for it somehow. I've been really impressed with, like, I've read that same Polygon article, and it talks so much about balance and how they figured that stuff out. So I trust that they are taking it all into consideration.
Patty K asks how we feel customizable characters will fit into Star Wars canon. Here we go.
Yeah.
Let's talk about canon.
I mean, here's the thing when it comes to the single player campaign, because you will be able to create your own character for the single player campaign. The way I see it is there are two squadrons, Vanguard and Titan, and we know what those squadrons did. They had special missions, and one succeeded and one failed, and that's what's canon about them. And probably 4 of their characters. And then the 5th was just like, I don't know, don't know much about that person in canon.
Right.
That's where the player gets to step into their shoes.
It makes me think of like the Battle of Yavin and all the red call signs that we hear and don't see. There could be anybody.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. Like, a lot of them have names and stuff, but sure, why not?
We don't see what they look like, and it's like in The Mandalorian when they put Dave Filoni and Deborah Chow and what's the other?
Rick Famuyiwa.
Yeah, and they made them pilots. So, I mean, anyone could potentially be a pilot, and that's the beauty of, I think, this game and the customization.
Yeah, we can all argue about who among us, everyone that's ever played, whose character is the most canon. I mean, it can't be mine because I'm just going to make Biggs again. I'm going to call him like Smalls, light, darker, and just... But I was like a little surprised that Lucasfilm went for this. But I think it's slightly different than like Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, where they were telling a very specific story about Cal Kestis, and that wasn't someone that you can customize. Mm-hmm. This, I think, is going to have more flexibility, and I like that. I think gaming deserves to have that flexibility because that is where the player wants to pretend it's them doing these things.
Yeah. Snickberdoodle wants to know if we could see sequels to the game in other eras if it does well.
Yes, absolutely. I mean...
Yeah, this feels like something that could be easily adapted. I mean, not easily, but like it could be adapted to different ships, different characters, different locations.
Yeah, anytime a game does well, a sequel is like almost guaranteed to happen. Personally, it depends if they want to do like a full-fledged story attached to it. Then I think it merits a sequel. I would prefer that they just expand the game through support. And I think most people would agree that, like, yeah, let's just keep adding stuff onto this for free.
Well, yeah, it's like the Battlefront 2 DLCs. I mean, if it does well, they could add in maps and ships from the prequel era.
Yeah. And
characters.
I think that would still take some doing because every ship is going to have a different cockpit. And you'd have to obviously design new fighters, interceptors, like one for every class, for every faction. I guess the sequel era wouldn't be that hard because it's kind of the same.
What I want to see is N1 starfighters. I want to see the Trade Federation ship, and I want to play as 9-year-old Anakin, and you can only see...
Like, you need a booster seat. That would actually be funny.
You
like,
can only see from here up.
You have Anakin mode enabled, and you're just spinning around, can't see over the cockpit, like, accidentally blowing up bases.
Yeah, like you can do most of the maneuvers, but you're kind of...
And if you're in VR, you have to hold your controls up here. Like...
Yeah. Michael Insline asks if there could be any chance of flying uglies in the game. So tell the people what uglies are.
That's something I had not considered before, and it's an idea that I really, really love. And this would have to be... So as it stands now, no way. I don't think that's something they've considered. But man, that would be a cool add-on down the line to, like, make your own starfighter.
Yeah. Half Y-Wing, half X-Wing.
Yeah. Like, that's... Yeah, if you don't know what an ugly is, it's just a mishmash of ship parts. So, like, yeah, an X-Wing with TIE fighter, like an X-Wing cockpit with TIE fighter solar panels. Like, that would be so much fun to mash your own ship together. And I guess it would do the stats for you as far as speed and this or that based on what cockpit and what wings you had. But that sounds like so much fun.
I mean, it would slow it down, but you could make an A-Wing and a TIE bomber into kind of one ship that's, like, not quite as fast, but has the ability to bomb things.
Drop heavy bombs, yeah.
Got the little panels on the side.
Sure. I mean, like, that's... It would be interesting to see what you could come up with and just, have ugly battles where everyone's got these wacky-looking ships.
And it's like, maybe this will run, maybe it won't.
That would be funny, too.
What's that
it's
game
where
you...
It's kind of like Kerbal.
Kerbal, yeah.
Where you spend all this time designing a ship, and you're like, here we go, and you power it on, it just explodes in the hangar.
It's like Dragon.
Yeah, but you're in the middle of a game. It's just like, well, so-and-so blew themselves up in the hangar. And you're like, well, been there. But yeah, I think the ugly idea would be a great mechanic for it. It would probably have to be in a sequel. I think that's something that has to be built from the ground up.
That would be very hard, I think, for the game developers to pull off. But if they did, a lot of fun.
It's a great idea.
Ben wants to know if there's any chance for expansion to the game's story the way that Battlefront 2 got Project Resurrection.
I doubt it. I think, especially the way they are talking about this game, they are saying that when it ships, it is done. Like, this is a complete game that doesn't need anything added on to it. I think that Project Resurrection was always part of the Battlefront 2 story that they just held off for a second. It was like a month or a couple weeks because they wanted it to build hype for The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
I think that's the only reason we got that DLC.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really see us getting that for Starfighters.
Yeah, I think if anything, any updates or changes or new stuff that we'll get will be for multiplayer mode.
I agree. I think that is kind of like Battlefront. I think that they're going to be more invested in the multiplayer side of things. That's what's going to keep this game going for a while. The story, I really, really hope, is longer than the Battlefront 2 campaign. I think I looked this up when it was first announced. I think like a Call of Duty campaign takes 6 to 8 hours. Like something like that, I think is perfectly acceptable and good. I just want it to be longer than like the 3 to 4 that Battlefront 2 had.
Yeah.
That's it for today and our Star Wars Squadrons Q&A. Make sure to tune back in tomorrow when we are going to be doing our regular weekly Q&A. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel,
Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
and consider checking out our Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.